Good morning, students, and welcome to Monday of week 3 of our online learning experience. This is going to be our last week talking about A Doll's House before we move on to our next unit after we come back from spring break. So this week is going to be less about reading the play and more about doing some specific analysis, talking more about feminism, reading some more articles, that kind of thing. So let's get started. Okay. So our goals for the week are for you to write a response to a prompt analyzing A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen, to continue to collaborate with your teachers and classmates, and to finalize all work on Doll's House in our feminism unit in order to prepare for our next learning experience. I also wanted to remind you guys, we are going to do the Zoom session again this Friday. So this Friday, 10 a.m., we will do another collaborative Zoom session. Again, I'll send the link out via Remind at 9:45 that morning. So if you're not in my class Remind, join it from the post right up there. And come join us on Friday. We had so much fun last Friday that we're going to try and make it a regular thing. Okay, so today's checklist, we're going to read and consider an article from Time magazine about feminism and movies. We're going to understand and explore something called the Bechdel Test, and I would like for you to find a movie that passes the Bechdel Test to watch this week. For today's lesson, our standard is RL7, analyze a representation of a subject or key scene in two different artistic mediums. And of course, in this case, we're talking about feminism and movies, or representation of women in movies, and as well as A Doll's House. Our learning target today says, I can analyze the representation of women in plays and movies by reading an article and watching movie clips so that I can understand how female characters have changed over the years. For our activator today, so I'm going to ask you to watch 2 videos. The first one, you've probably already recognized it if you're looking at your screen right now. This is Part of Your World from The Little Mermaid. So this is Ariel singing Part of Your World. Now, The Little Mermaid came out in 1989, so 30 years ago is when this movie premiered, and when Ariel was singing Part of Your World. Our second clip, this is Elsa, Queen Elsa, singing Show Yourself from Frozen 2, which came out at the end of last year, so 2019. So 30 years separating these two movies, and I want you to look at both songs and consider how they're different, how Show Yourself, which is a much more modern song, is much more empowering for Elsa than Part of Your World is for Ariel. And just take some time to think about how Disney princesses have changed from 1989 to 2019, or even within the past decade. If you look at, for example, Tangled came out in 2010, and Rapunzel was not a very strong heroine in that movie. She kind of needed other people to drag her through the story, versus Moana came out in 2016, and Moana was, the entire movie was carried by Moana. It had like 2 stars, and Moana did everything with no romantic subplot. So, just kind of looking at that shift from I want to give up my entire life to go live on land with this human prince guy that I've never even spoken to. I will literally give up my voice to go live with this prince I've never spoken to, all the way up to Elsa now saying, me and my sister are going to rule these neighboring kingdoms and right the wrongs of the past that our fathers have created. Sorry, spoilers if you haven't seen Frozen 2. You should go see it. It's really good. All right, so for our work session today, your assignment this week, this is our biggest assignment yet. You're going to choose a prompt. I've got 5 prompts picked out for you. You're going to choose one and write a paragraph in response to it. So I've got this Google Doc right here. This is it. This is what it looks like. And you are going to, my face is covering up the choose one right now. There you go. You're going to choose one of these 5 prompts, and then you're going to fill in this chart with your response to it. This is due April 3rd, Friday, April 3rd at 11:59 p.m. So each day we are going to talk about the content, like about the prompt. We're going to kind of unpack it and go over it together. So I've set these up as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But remember, you only need to choose one. So just choose one, whichever one you would like. Just fill in this chart with, you put your name right here, put your teacher's name right here, and then type the number of the prompt that you're answering and, whatever you want to say about it. And that's it. That's how you answer. So just give me a paragraph in response to whichever of these 5 prompts that you like. Remember, you only have to do one of them. And today you guys can read all these prompts on your own, but today we are talking about considering feminism in movies. We're going to look at the Bechdel test, consider whether it's fair, what movie you guys should go watch a movie sometime this week that passes the test, and are you surprised that such a high percentage of movies fail the test? Okay, so today's topic, again, feminism in movies. The first thing I'd like you to do is read and consider this article from Time magazine about feminism in movies. We're sticking with the Frozen theme here because this does talk about Frozen 2. So in Frozen 2, Elsa gets a wardrobe change. If you're not, look, there's Baby Jack Jack in an ad right there. If you are not familiar with Frozen 2, Elsa gets to wear pants. It's kind of a big deal. And she, while wearing her pants, she goes on to be the heroine of the movie. She casts kind of everyone aside and goes on to save the world, more or less. But this article says, maybe that's not enough. Like, yes, it's cool that a princess gets to wear some practical clothing. We don't often get to see princesses wearing practical clothing. Even Jasmine, who did wear pants in Aladdin in the 90s, not very practical pants, like she's wearing pants with also like a bikini top. So is that really like, does that count, or was it more of a fashion choice than a practicality choice? And so this kind of asks, does putting the princess, the queen, in pants take it far enough? And it talks about Mad Max Fury Road, it talks about Avengers Endgame, it talks about Captain Marvel, and a lot of discussion on this, and points out that this is not a problem exclusive to Disney. It's just that Disney is such a big movie-making company. And yeah, so it's really interesting to talk about if it's enough. Do these movies go far enough to make it right, to kind of have women as strong characters, or should we be doing something else rather than kind of reinventing these? Like, rather than, for example, giving Jasmine her own song in the 2019 Aladdin, should we maybe just not remake a movie from the 90s and instead come up with a new story? So interesting stuff in that article. The next thing I would like for you to do is understand and explore the Bechdel test. So here's the Bechdel Test website. The test itself is very, very simple. In order to pass the test, a movie has to have at least 2 named women. They have to talk to each other about something besides a man. That's it. Just 2 named women talk to each other about something besides a man. And even though that sounds so simple, about 1/3 of movies completely fail this test. And you can start looking at, for example, here in the sidebar, some recent additions. The movie 1917 as a war movie. I saw that movie, a couple months ago. I can't actually think of a single female character. No, there's one female character in it, and not only is she unnamed, but she doesn't speak any English. You never get to hear her say. She only speaks French. Of course, the movie's set in France, so that makes a little bit of sense. But she basically has no voice. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, that's the Mr. Rogers movie, fails the test. Ad Astra, that's the Brad Pitt goes into space movie, terrible movie, fails the test. So a lot of these, even movies that I particularly liked, like I saw and enjoyed The Art of Racing in the Rain, fails the test. So just if you start looking at all of these different movies on here, you might be surprised to find that a lot of your favorites can't pass this extremely simple test. I'm certain if you did this test in reverse, look for a movie that has 2 named men who talk to each other about something besides a woman, I can't think of any movie that would fail that test. Maybe My Little Pony. Maybe. So that's the Bechdel test. I would like for you to consider that, explore that test website, and see if you can find a movie that passes the Bechdel test that you haven't seen before, and then watch that this week. For our closing session today, that's what I was just talking about. I want you to go out and find a movie that passes the Bechdel test and sit down and watch it. If you're busy today, you don't have to do it today, but sometime this week, sit down with a bowl of popcorn. We're all in quarantine. We have nothing better to do, right? If you're looking for some suggestions, I would recommend Captain Marvel if you've got Disney Plus. But I'm sure you can find something on whatever streaming service you like. Also, if you are more of a YouTube type of person, check out this series. This is called Bringing Back What's Stolen from a YouTube channel called Innuendo Studios. And it's a whole series about women in movies, and it uses the movie Mad Max Fury Road, which is a really good movie for this topic, as its basis. So check that out if you're interested in this. Looking ahead to tomorrow, we're going to be talking a lot about toxic masculinity versus wholesome masculinity. So check out this advice from Princeton. We're going to be looking at this advice from Princeton University about wholesome masculinity. We're going to read this article from the website Medium, written by a guy named Christian Lopez, on what non-toxic masculinity looks like. And then I want you to consider your own opinions about what makes something wholesome masculine versus toxic masculine. Because I want to be clear that not all masculinity is toxic, right? But there is such a thing as wholesome masculinity. So that's what I kind of want to focus on tomorrow: is how can people still be masculine but avoid that toxicity that sometimes comes into it. So that's about it for today, you guys. Go read those articles, go watch a movie, and I'll see you tomorrow.